Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I would like to do some housekeeping before we get started. This is a webinar format, which means your microphones and your cameras are turned off. Please, if you have any questions for the panelists, write it in the Q&A section. We will have plenty of time to answer the questions today. It may be a shorter webinar today, we shall see. We also will have this recorded. The recording should be on our ACRO website within 48 hours. And if you would like to add closed captions, you may do so by clicking on the bottom panel, clicking on the captions button, and you will have your closed captions. And without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Julia. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Velma. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. In our first EDGE user group of the year, but certainly not our last. You will see us here monthly, and I am happy to introduce to you our International Education Standards Council. I will tell you in just a moment who is on with us, but I want you to know that ACRO EDGE utilizes the expertise of the International Education Standards Council to both review and update recommendations that we have there. The chair for this group of experts is Jasmine Saidi-Cunard. She's the ISC chair as well as the founder, president, and CEO of ACEI. And she is joined today by Shelby Kearley, Robert Watkins, Dave Mahaly is on from ACRO, as well as Drew Carlisle is here from ACRO. So welcome to all of them. And just a little bit more, we can go to the next slide. You'll see that these representatives are from public and private institutions, higher education institutions, evaluation agencies, and they really have a wealth of experience, decades. And they really put everything together, spend a lot of time so that you have current up-to-date information that's been well thought out and vetted. And that those are then the recommendations that they come up with on these different credentials are provided in EDGE, and they are always done by a majority consensus. So all excellent there. Yes, Drew's got snow in Greenbelt. We've got snow down here in Virginia in the Washington, D.C. area and frigid temperatures everywhere. But the other thing we always do when we have these EDGE user groups is to hold a poll to see where you all are coming from. So let's launch that poll. And we have 3 questions for you. The first one, are you an EDGE subscriber? Yes or no? Is this your first EDGE user group? Yes or no? And then what segment of the membership do you represent? Are you an institutional staff member? Are you an evaluation service, a government agency, a law firm? Take a moment now and think about that, and think about what is the latest in the Old Farmer's Almanac. I don't have my book in front of me today, but I can tell you that I was recently told that January 15th is on record as the average coldest day of the year. And thank goodness we passed that. We have also passed the winter solstice, which means days are getting longer. Yahoo! Anybody else feel that? I certainly do. And here are our results. 85% of you are an EDGE subscriber. The other 15%, we hope that this webinar today might make you decide that you need to be a subscriber and consider that in the future. Is this your first EDGE user group? Wow! Over a third of you, yes it is. We're so glad you're here. Come back again and join us. 62% of you have been here before. Welcome back. You are sort of the backbone of all that we do here and why we keep the lights on with these webinars. So thanks for being here. Representation, it looks like 88% of you, the vast majority are from an institution. Yay! And then another 12% are from an evaluation service. Excellent. So without further ado, let's get on to the meat of this, and Drew is going to talk about our agenda. Drew?
Hey, thanks, Julia. So it's been a while since we all got together and talked and met about all of these different things. I've missed all of you. Since we last spoke, those of you who were with us knew that we didn't have one in December, and this one here in January, we don't have our full cohort of everyone that normally joins us. We are still going to go over a few of the items that are on our current research list that we're already in the midst of working on. We've got a couple of updates about actually an issue that some of you have encountered with your Edge subscriptions about after you've paid, you've been losing access. I'm going to give you some screenshots to show you exactly how to walk through that. We think we've got the technical solution fixed on the back end, but I wanted to be sure to give all of you the ability to take care of that yourself, just in case you're running into that. For content, though, let's talk about Kenya. We did make an update in there that Robert's going to chat about with, well, some people call it the diploma, some people call it the ordinary diploma. He'll get into that. There's been a pretty significant update within Iran, providing more information on pre and post educational reform in that 2013 to 2014 area, and some suggestions and some recommendations and some advice on some vocational credentials from both before and after that change. Some of those things that you might be running into and may need a little bit of advice for how to deal with that. We've got also down in East Africa, some mention of some changes that are happening within Rwanda, and also some changes that are happening within some engineer programs up in the Czech Republic and Czechia. But why don't we get started? Robert, would you come on and talk to us just a little bit about Kenya?
Sure, Drew, thanks. But before I get started, let me just give, and you told us, Drew, that we had a little extra time today. Let me just give a verbal shout out to Nancy Kedeque, who I see is in the participant list and is the author of Edge Ghana. She may, and it's largely, Nancy, the way you wrote it, which will probably make you cringe because that was a good 15 years ago. But we have done some of the occasional changes here. And if ever you see anything in there that you feel needs to be changed, you just shoot us an email and we'll take care of it. We really appreciate all the work that you did for that profile on Ghana. Nancy was with Education, recently retired from Education USA. She was a REAC in Africa, based in Accra, Ghana, and just a delightful person who's been to a few ACRO meetings. Hello, Nancy. Okay, Kenya. Really, this is sort of an easy kind of change. As most of you know, I've been around a while. And when I first started, quite a number of years ago, like so much of Anglophone West Africa, the terminology used in Kenya, of course, Kenya's in East Africa, but it's the same in West Africa. Old British nomenclature was used in the educational system until probably around the 1980s and just beyond into the 90s, when things started to change a little bit and countries started to nationalize more and get away from some of that old British language. One of the things that hung over was the use of the term ordinary diploma in Kenya. In Nigeria, it was a little different. It was ordinary national diploma, which is exactly what it was called in the UK forever. But increasingly in the last decade or so, what we've noticed is, at least in Kenya, is that they have gone away from use of the word ordinary diploma to just simply using the word diploma. So the way we decided to fix it, since we needed to keep ordinary diploma, since you all may still see some of these, was to simply add a slash in diploma to the title, and then add in the credential note this information you see here on the screen, on the slide, that says it's still, nothing changed in terms of duration. What changed is the terminology in referring to it. These are awarded, just to remind you, by polytechnics. Indeed, when I first started, I thought that's the only ones that did it. But it turns out that the TTIs, the technical training institutions, also award these. And even the CNEC, the Kenya National Examinations Council, awards some. And some universities, at least one we know of, and since we usually eschew naming universities in Edge, we just simply say some universities will actually award these as well. Of course, they give access to further education. So again, to recap, there's only a slight change in the nomenclature. We don't have it on the slide here, but in the actual entry for Edge, we actually wrote that the term ordinary diploma is being phased out in favor of the simple term diploma. So you may see it either way. The giveaway, of course, is that it's most likely from a polytechnic or a TTI, although again, as indicated, a university may actually award these as well. So that's one change. It's already in Edge. You'll see it right there. While I've got the floor, Drew, let me mention too, one that we don't have on the agenda or slide there, just very briefly, and that is the Master of Computer Applications, MCA, from India. And about this time last year, it turns out it was April of 2023, we made that adjustment based on information that Dave Mahaly and others got when they were researching India, that the UGC just mandated that the 3-year Master of Computer Applications, often, not invariably, but often, following a 3-year BCA, Bachelor of Computer Applications, would be reduced from 3 years to 2, beginning with the academic year 2020-2021. And so we've already made that change in Edge. We basically just simply bifurcated the advice. This is what you'll do if you have the new 2-year one. This is what you'll do if you have the old 3-year one. And just indicated that when that change came about, again, the academic year 2021, and what most recently happened was literally yesterday, I scanned to Drew a copy of one we received here at University of Texas, dated 2023. It's the 2-year variety, and so I wanted to see if we could get that as a sample document into Edge as soon as possible. Clearly, Drew has not had enough time to get that done. I only sent it yesterday. But hopefully it'll be in there soon, maybe certainly by the next webinar meeting, and you'll be able to see a clear example of the new 2-year one, as opposed to the traditional and older 3-year one that you saw so much. With that, Drew, I'll send it back to you.
Hey, thanks, Robert. So I did see that at one point not too long ago, I saw someone had raised their hand. I'm not sure what the question was, but if you could put that down in the Q&A, we would be able to answer that. We're going to come back around to some, there is going to be time for some questions here at the end. And I did see one question that came in. There was a question about something that's in Edge right now for an Ecuador entry. It does appear that's a typo. I'll have to go back in there and look through all of that. But thank you for highlighting that. Whenever you identify something that you think is amiss, there is actually a link within every page of Acro Edge. On the left-hand side, it'll say Contact Edge. At the top, on the very top bar, there's a Contact Us. There's a couple of places from every page within the database that you can reach out to us, and we'll be able to figure out exactly where you've identified that problem. It feeds into a form. The form comes into us, and then we send out everyone to attack and find that problem. But what we're going to talk about for right now, since I don't know what that question was where the hand was raised, let's go over to Iran. Jasmine, I'm going to hand this to you because I'll bet you're going to be better at talking about all of these credentials than I am.
Thank you, Drew. I had to refer back to my notes because Iran, as many know, has reformed its education system, particularly at the primary and secondary level, a number of times since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. So what we have done is we prepared the chronological kind of overview, a calendar of the decades in which these reforms have happened and how that's impacted the number of years that elementary or primary and secondary school cover in the country. What we have today is effective 2013, 2014. Iran has reverted to this system that it had in place pre-revolution and briefly post-revolution until 1995, which is offering a 12-year system, 6 years of primary, followed by 6 years of secondary, of which 3 are at the lower secondary, grades 7, 8, and 9, and 3 years are at the upper secondary, grades 10, 11, and 12. Briefly, well, not so briefly, but for about a decade or so, we had in Iran the introduction of an 11-year system followed by a 1-year system that was called a pre-university. That has now been phased out. So what we are looking at is the traditional 6+6. And what we've done is we have updated some of the entries in Edge country profile for Iran, as well as a credential advice. We have noted that the grade 13, sorry, the pre-university year has been phased out. The last time that it was offered was in 2018. What you will see is effective 2013, 2014 would be the new cohorts that went in. They will be coming out with high school diplomas that reflect completion of a 12th grade. 2 new credentials have also been added to the credential advice, and they correspond to the vocational track. Previously, these vocational diplomas, one is in the kind of the technical side, the other is more in the workforce, such as, people who are trying to get into business or some sort of social or community service. These vocational credentials ended at year 11 at pre the reforms, but what they did allow the students to do, the graduates of these vocational programs, even pre-reform, was that they were eligible to get in the post-secondary institutions that offered a 2-year post-secondary diploma called the Kardani. Some of those Kardani programs were terminal. Some did provide access to further education at the university levels. Following the reforms of 2013, 2014, these vocational credentials that I just mentioned have been now upgraded, that covering the 12-year high school, meaning admission is completion of 9th grade of lower secondary, followed by 3 years in the vocational track. They will receive their diplomas of completion of a high school program within a vocational stream. They are all eligible for further education into Kardani programs. They do not have a direct access to university degrees such as the Karshanasi. They have to go through the Kardani. And as I said, some of the Kardani programs may be terminal, but some may be continuous, meaning they do provide access to university programs. Yet I believe they still have to qualify. It's not immediate access. They probably still need to go through some entrance exams, whether it's a national exam or the university examination. So these are the significant changes that you will be seeing. We are going back to the 12-year system, so no head scratching about what shall I do with this pre-university year or what shall I do with an 11-year high school. We are reverting back to a system that will be more comparable to the US 12-year high school education. I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much. Let's move to our next slide.
Thanks, Jasmine.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna loop Dave in here and talk about some of the research that he has been doing. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Drew. The issue at hand here with Rwanda is that many resources, including Edge and NUFIC and some of the other things that we check on a daily basis for information on educational systems in general, have quite a clear delineation between a 3-year, you could call it an ordinary degree, and the 4-year honors degree. But the situation isn't quite as clear-cut as that. There are plenty of examples of honors degrees, which are clearly delineated as honors being 3-year. Just in my notes from a couple of weeks ago, I had physics with atmospheric science and biochemistry and mathematics with a statistics specialization, all at 3 years for an honors degree. The engineering type degrees remain at 4, but computer science or a bachelor in computer information systems, most of these examples are taken from University of Rwanda. are 4 years. So, you know, it's going to be a simple change to say that they can be 3 or 4 years when we update the EDGE credential. But as it is with these things, you know, you essentially have to lock down every permutation you can find before you commit something and put up a new entry. So that's one of the thanks for the flag updates. That's one of the things that we'll be doing in the very near future with the IESC in terms of having a vote. I don't vote on the council, but I get to or committee, but I get to attend and make recommendations. So we'll be talking about Rwanda fairly soon. So that's something coming up the pike. And that's really it for Rwanda.
And yeah, and there was going to be a little bit of a discussion about in the Czech Republic, there was going to be a brief discussion about the engineering program as well. But
Right.
the wrong flag may have thrown you off.
Right. The issue in Czech Republic is that we retain pre-Bologna advice for a degree, you know, that is now moved on toward, you know, the Bologna system, and so we have a master's degree in level according to the Czech you know, qualification system. However, the title that's awarded is the title of engineer, you know, INZ with a accent, ENYR, I guess is the spelling. This degree, the nomenclature is the same as the old degree of 5 years, which we used to call comparable to a bachelor's degree in terms of the credential advice in EDGE, and now it's officially in the master's realm, which is the problem we had with a lot of Bologna qualifications, where we had patterns in Italy and Spain and other places where 5 years we were kind of opting down within the field. This is pre-EDGE even in terms of our equivalencies, and now those have to be revisited. I guess it's, you know, editorial comment. It's probably a good thing that we don't have a Bologna process. We'll call it a Buenos Aires process for South America or something, where we have a lot of 5-year licentiates and you know, verging into 6 years. But anyway, that's another thing that we'll be updating. Fortunately, the Slovakia entry for the engineers has been updated and very much mirrors the situation in the Czech Republic. So it'll be an easy job to kind of get that formatted and up. So that's coming attractions for Rwanda and Czech Republic.
Hey, it's another coming attraction, but Shelby, since you're probably a little bit on your toes with all that freezing wind that's been blowing through, you're probably alert and with it right now. You want to talk about what you're working on? I know you were let's see, what was it on? I was listening to NPR and they were talking about this new fusion restaurant that's opening up in Milwaukee. It's got Armenian, Georgian, and Azerbaijani cuisine mixed with like some Midwestern staples. And they're going to call it the Iowa Caucasus. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. This is in a way of coming attractions. One of the things that we do in our IESC meetings is look over questions that are submitted by EDGE users. I have one of those questions that I'm working on right now that I hope to have ready for you for next month's webinar. A user submitted a question on Mexico, specifically about the Título Profesional de Abogado and the Licenciatura en Derecho degrees, so the licentiate in law, the professional title in law, or professional title of lawyer programs, and what appears to be some conflicting advice in the credential entry for Mexico. So What I'm doing right now is finishing up a comprehensive review of the different abogado programs at Mexican universities. And then we're going to take a look and see, does the information in the credential information section of the Mexico profile, does that match what we're seeing in the actual universities? Does any of that information need to be updated? And do we need to perhaps reevaluate either our credential advice or our placement recommendations? So hopefully that's going to be finished in the not too distant future, and we'll have that update for you next week, next month. And then the other thing that I'm working on as well is there's been some chatter in one of the online discussion boards about changes to Peruvian secondary grading scales. So a colleague and I are doing a review of the most recent information from Peru, and we should have updated recommendations for secondary grading scales in Peru at the next webinar for you as well. Back to you, Drew.
Thanks, Shelby. For those of you that are local to Milwaukee, please don't go look for that restaurant. It does not actually exist. But for things that do actually exist, we do have some upcoming events that are going to be taking place with ACRO. The International Institute is rapidly approaching. It's at the beginning of next month, and it's going to be at the Yours Truly Hotel in Washington, D.C. There's a bunch of different reasons that you would want to come. You might want to come network. You might want to come refresh. You might want to come learn some things for the first time. But I'm going to let you look at everything that we're going to be talking about. But you can take these methodologies and you can apply them towards whatever you're working on in your office. There's a bunch of really good information, really hands-on training. I'm not sure everyone that's going to be there, but I know that some of our panelists that are even present today have presented at these institutes in the past. Let's go on to the next slide and we can just talk about another thing that ACRO has recently brought out for you. We now have the exchange. For a time, there was both an option for you to submit your questions through listservs as well as through the ACRO exchange. ACRO has made it so that the ACRO exchange is now a members only area where you're going to be able to have all of these conversations with fellow ACRO members, and it's really going to push that whatever your discussion is about further. Our international activities group, it just switched right over and now it's international activities, but you'll find it in the exchange. You log in to the exchange from, sorry, the last slide, sorry, Belma. You log into the exchange using the same credentials that you use for all ACRO web-based services. So if you use ACRO Edge for the 85% of you that are already subscribers, you'll use those same login codes to get into exchange.acro.org. For those of you that, are attending this webinar today, there was a way that you had to sign up. That's going to be the same username that you're going to be used to get in and have all these conversations, but it's the same functionality that you get with the listserv. You'll be able to go in, you'll be able to set it so you receive digests either on a daily, a weekly, or kind of an immediate basis. If you are following the threads going back and forth and you are one of those active, engaged participants who is both learning and distributing information, you're going to want to have your settings so that they're coming in real time. If you are someone that likes to sit down at the end of the day and look at all the conversations and figure out what you need to do more research on for yourself, the daily digest might be the way to do that for you. But if you're not an ACRO member, you are going to need to become an ACRO member, not an Edge subscriber. There's a difference here. You need to be an ACRO member to have access to all of this. Your ACRO Edge subscription does not include this, but it would be something that you could use in conjunction with an Edge subscription to find lots of information with colleagues. Now we can move on to the next one, Belma. I would be happy to show everyone what this slide is right here. I alluded earlier in our conversation to an issue that some of you have been experiencing where well, it's really not the way subscriptions are supposed to work at all. As soon as we collected your money, no one was given access to the product anymore. Long story short, we believe we found the technical solution, but in the interim, if any of you renew a subscription, either for Edge or for another Acro subscription, another product. If you do not have the access that you would expect, the Edge manager, who is someone who is designated as part of the subscription, they're able to log into their account and they're able to grant and revoke access to individuals, create new individuals if they're not already within the system. But that Edge manager has the ability to add everyone right back in. So there's no need for you to wait to hear back from any of us here with customer service. You can get that fix taken care of pretty quickly. So this is the screen that your Edge manager would look at. When they log in, on the left-hand side, there's subscriptions. It's one of the 5 tabs, the middle one, subscriptions. Select subscriptions, and then some of you will have an option for multiple subscriptions, maybe an Acro membership, maybe an Edge subscription. Whatever they are, you're going to pick the item that you wish to manage. On the right-hand side, there's that manage link. So let's assume that we just clicked it, boop, and then Belma, on the next slide, this is going to be brought up. On the left-hand side, you see there's 2 more little tabs, payment settings and members. It's the members tab where you're going to be able to go in and assign or revoke this access. You can see the dates of your subscription there at the top, June 1st, 2023 through July 1st, 2024. We give you 30 days at the end of the expiration of your subscription. After it's technically expired, just to give you a little bit more time, if you know, processing checks are in the mail, accounting takes 60 days, whatever the issue is, we want to give you a little bit more cushion. But there's a lot of useful information on here. You can see 6 out of the 10 members have been assigned. And from this page, I can tell you that of these individuals, only Jackie Walker with the check mark in that assigned column, only Jackie has access to Edge right now. Everyone else has some affiliation with Vanderbilt University. Let's go Nashville. Everybody else has some affiliation with Vanderbilt University, but only Jackie Walker is assigned access on the subscription currently being managed. That's that Edge subscription, 10 users there at the top. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at edge@acro.org. But there's also FAQs, a user guide, and more information linked from every page within Acro Edge. And on the Acro Edge user guide, there's some videos that even walk through some of this. Done with the housekeeping. Let's get to some of the fun stuff. Money. You like money? You like research? That's why you're here. We know that many of you out there do enjoy your work, really throw yourselves into it. And we want to help kind of defray some of those costs that are associated with research. If you are interested, here's information for you about the Gloria Nathanson Research Fund for International Education. It's a great way to further your impact in the field. And on this last slide, I want to see all of you in Columbus. It's coming up here April 7th. I was trying to remember it off the top of my head, but Julia, I know that you're a big fan of OH. I figured that you would get on here to talk about our annual meeting just a little bit. Julia, you want to pop on?
Yes, if I get my camera work, there we go. Yes, lots planned for Columbus, the annual meeting. We do hope you'll join us. It will be several days just packed with good content, including more than 24 sessions, international specific sessions, things from CVIS updates to current higher education grading practices in India. An added bonus, because I didn't give you a whole lot of Farmer's Almanac info like I usually do at the very beginning, I'll give it to you now. April 8th, so right in the middle of this conference, there is going to be a total solar eclipse. This solar eclipse, they only come about once every 385 days, according to the almanac, somewhere on Earth. And this one is going to be coming up through Mexico and Texas at a northeastern clip up through Maine. Columbus, Ohio is right in the total solar eclipse path. So if you're there, you'll get a great view of the total solar eclipse, and you won't have to wait for the next one, which we would see in our area, actually in, I think, Montana, in 2044. So a great time to be there. Lots of exciting things in Columbus. The content is going to be spectacular. We encourage you all to come and get involved.
And Julia, thank you for highlighting that that the eclipse is happening right during the annual meeting. We are aware of that, and we know what time it's going to be taking place, and we have a feeling that many of you are also going to be interested in that. So keep that in mind, that we know that the eclipse is coming, and we want you to be able to enjoy the entire meeting experience in Columbus.
Yes, and join Shelby. We've got several people here who will be doing sessions. Shelby, Dave, Robert, myself. I'm not sure about Jasmine, but we will all be presenting on various topics, and hope to see you there in person.
And so now, speaking of various topics, I think we have a few questions that have been coming in. Let's see, Dave, I'm going to pass the mic over to you so you can distribute all these questions to the right folks. What do we got?
All right. Well, we have coming up first after the Ecuador issue, which has been addressed about a typo. We have a question about the 3-year licența in Romania, and Shelby has answered in the chat portion that yes, the 180 ECTS one exists. Shelby, you want to add anything to that one?
Maybe if I can get my camera to work. Okay. Yes, the Romanian higher education law changed in 2005, 2006. So starting that academic year, the licența, or however you pronounce it, I don't know how to pronounce it. Starting in the 2005, 2006 academic years is a minimum of 180 ECTS credits. So that is something that we may need to look at and edit in the credential profile section. So our institution would accept that as a bachelor's degree equivalent. At this moment, I'm not entirely sure what the IESC position would be on that. So stay tuned.
Shelby, let me add,
Yes.
this is an example to the user that spotted that. This is an example of the fact that of the 49 signatory countries to the European higher education area, maybe half have their Bologna compliant degrees actually in EDGE. I know that's terrible. It's really my fault. I was the one that was trying to take this on single-handedly for several years. Clearly was not getting the job done, expressed it to the group, and so I think we're going to take it in hand. We had some the new fellows that just rolled off. We're working on their white paper on Bologna process, and we're about to scan that and put it up after the group has had a chance to look it over again. But at that point, I would hope that we would have a concerted effort to try and remedy the Bologna signatory countries' credentials such that these new degrees are all included. Most, as you know, most of those that joined at the very beginning or soon thereafter enacted laws in approximately, depends on the country, but approximately 2003, 2004, and began implementing those new Bologna compliant degrees with the ECTS and all of that. Unfortunately, it's not all reflected in EDGE at this very moment, but hopefully it will be. This example, Romania, is clearly one where we don't yet have it in there, but we'll work on that and try to get those done as quickly as possible. My guess, based on my history with the council, is that most likely a 3-year 180 ECTS, which is to say 90 semester hour, Bologna compliant first degree would not be given bachelor's comparability. 240 ECTS ones, like the ones in Spain or Russia, newly independent, or the former Soviet republics, and Turkey would all be considered bachelor's comparable degrees. But the 3-year ones, unless buttressed by a prior 13-year system, as is the case in Italy, as is the case in Norway, probably would not receive that comparability. This would be an example, Romania, of one that would not. But don't forget, there is a Bologna entry in there as well in the Europe continent section. And in there, in the overview, we do talk about this very issue and what universities might be wanting to do with these 3-year degrees.
Oh, that's a perfect segue, Robert, into we'll skip the International Institute and come right back to it, or the question of the 180 ECTS first degree in Hungary has been raised. It's not different in terms of what we might say about it in EDGE, depending on how the IESC would vote. But if an institution typically recognizes all Bologna compliant first degrees, first cycle degrees, let's say, of 180 ECTS or more, then that's a policy that kind of lives outside of EDGE for those types of degrees. So as Robert has said, some of these truncated first degrees of 3 years have yet to make their way in. And frankly, I'm not even aware of what exactly the Hungary page looks like right now. Going back to
Well, Dave, I'm going to jump in and interrupt you
Yeah.
for 1 second. One thing that we have done when going back and identifying these different degrees is, as Robert mentioned, if there is need for there to be bifurcated advice, maybe that we have different advice for what to do with 180 versus 240 ECTS. That is consistent within EDGE. But as Dave was alluding to, as Shelby mentioned earlier, different institutions can come up with and implement their own policies. And EDGE is a great tool that you can use to develop those policies.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. Let's let Julia Funaki weigh in on the International Institutes, whether there will be a chance this summer.
Okay, so yes, we will have a summer institute, International Institute. The dates have not been set yet. However, registration is still open for the Winter Institute. So if you have a last minute desire to get into that institute, please register. You will be still able to join that institute if you are interested. They really are a great opportunity for us to meet with you, kind of really get to know you and your institution and answer a lot of questions. And with that, I'd certainly say Robert Watkins might want to jump in because he's pretty much the emeritus. I think he's done more than I've done at this point. So
Yes, I'll be there, Julia. The good thing about these is that the faculty does change, with the exception of me, I guess, and of course, Annetta, but who runs the whole thing. But we do kind of turn it around, have new people coming in, others that can make it sometimes, but not all the time. And so while there's some stalwarts, there's also some new folks, and it's great to hear from new faculty members on what's going on at their institution or their credential service and the way that they're handling the credentials that we talk about during those institutes. And of course, I enjoy it and keep coming back each time because I enjoy hearing so much from new folks in the field about what's going on in their workplaces in terms of these credentials. And for some, it's just they just have a few weeks experience. For others, they have a few years experience, and it's great. But whatever their experience level, it's great to hear from them and what's going on at their particular offices and so on. So I really encourage you to give it some thought. It's always fun, of course, to come to DC. I'm trying to remember where yours truly is. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's across the circle from One DuPont. I believe it's that particular hotel there. We've been there before, but it's just a great location. Lots to do and see when we give you downtime, which isn't a lot, but we do give you some. And I just really encourage you. I've had some of our people at UT go, even though they hear me anyway, I want them to hear others. And there are a few folks have come more than once from other institutions as well, repeaters. I know Lois is on this chat, on this webinar, and she's one that came for 2 or 3 of the institutes before she had this all figured out. So anyway, I encourage you all to give it some thought. And I think you'll come away with some great pieces of information, not just from notes, but actual paper you can take back to your office that'll help you and guide you. I still use Institute Russian credential information that Julia Faraki gave out years ago that I use in my office each time a Russian credential comes up. So I encourage you all to come. We'd love to have you there.
It's a great chance for us to get to know you once again. I mean, just to meet who's at the institutions is really a special time. And I think, Robert, that yours truly is the old Don Shula, where that restaurant down near Rasika, the well known and respected Indian restaurant in Washington, D.C. I think that's where yours truly is. Wherever it is, you will have access to metros, and it's a great time to be in D.C. Go see the Nationals play and just enjoy DC, some of the summer concerts as well. But the winter's also fun too. So
I was going to say the Nationals will not be playing if you join us for the
No.
Winter Institute. Pitchers and catchers have not yet reported.
nope.
And yes, Julia, you are thinking of yours truly as you head down towards George Washington University, as you head down towards the circle. That is the direction there of yours truly, there between like L and M. Yeah, just pretty
You
close
may
to
not you may not have the Nationals, but you would have the Wizards and the Caps playing, the Washington Capitals playing, so, and the
Correct.
Mystics.
All
So what
right.
else we got, Dave?
Well, I think we're going to return to the far west of the United States for the next one. Does anyone want to share their opinions on transcripts coming directly from universities in Russia? A student at this institution was unable to obtain an official transcript. Is anyone else having that, or does anyone have anything to add to that in terms of availability of transcripts? Shelby, you are up.
Why, yes. Unfortunately, we've had this issue as well. This is true. We're seeing this for the past year or so, a little bit longer than a year maybe. And we're not able to actually use the verification site, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that O word, where we used to at least be able to verify that someone who said they had a diploma of higher education actually did have the diploma of higher education. We've even tried using virtual private networks, where it shows that we're not in the United States and we're still not able to access it. We have had one instance in which we were able to contact an institution in Russia directly. It was located in, I believe it wasn't St. Petersburg. It may have been Moscow. I don't actually remember. And we reached out directly to the institution itself, to their international office, and they actually answered us. They were not able to supply a set of documents, but they did agree to look at the documents that the student had provided, the unofficial copy of the documents that she had uploaded to our application system. And they verified that matched their internal records, and that was the best that we could do. So there was a decision made at a level above me that we would accept that as confirmation that these were official documents. That's the best that we've been able to do. I don't know if any of you have any other experience.
That's creative, Shelby. I like that.
If I could just echo what Shelby said, this is Jasmine with Academic Credentials Evaluation Institute. We have not been able to do the verification, the online verification. We no longer are receiving them direct, but we do have some native Russian speakers who are our credential evaluators. And just like what Shelby said, they've been able to kind of do the in-house verification where we match against the credentials we have on file, but they have also been successful in sending emails to the institutions directly in Russian, and we have received that sort of verification, kind of a a written verification, but no documents have been released to us. So that's where we stand with this as well.
All right, maybe we'll hear from someone else later in the chat or the comments about that, but that gives you an idea that it is problematic right now. Moving on to Cambodia, a question about the foundation year and whether people recognize that or not. Excuse me.
Okay.
One of the issues with the foundation years was that the fairly newly formed accreditation council in Cambodia had not accredited any universities yet, but they had accredited plenty of the foundation year programs. And as I understand it or remember it, the foundation year was just a general year to prepare students for, baccalaureate degree study. I would welcome anyone who wants to opine on creditworthiness of a recognized foundation year. Jasmine, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly what you said, Dave. The other thing that we're also seeing is some of these foundation years are not instituted by a Cambodian-based institution. They're set up by a non-Cambodian institution, predominantly Australian institutions that want to have the sort of bridge between their institutions and students in Cambodia. And they've set what we have seen named as foundation years, which is to bring these individuals up to the standards that satisfy kind of pre-university preparation in order to be admitted to an Australian university. They don't require completion of foundation year of Australian high school graduates. They require it of a non-graduate, and we've seen some of these coming from Cambodia. So we don't recommend college credit because we see them as more of a preparatory year for students who are planning to either attend a university in Cambodia or whose secondary education may not be strong enough, or they're planning to, if they're done by a let's say an Australian university that has set this foundation year up, we definitely don't recognize it for credit because they don't require that of Australian high school graduates. This is kind of a unique program they have for our international students. So I've
I'd like
seen
to jump
them
in
both.
as well,
Yes.
Jasmine, and agree wholeheartedly. Basically, a foundation year is exactly what it sounds like. It's designed to prepare someone to enter a degree program in a university. And it's a statement, you sort of alluded to it, I'm going to say it more boldly. It is in this case, non-Cambodians' perception that the Cambodian upper secondary study is insufficient for direct entry into a degree program, which sort of rankles me, but that's the thinking, or else they wouldn't create these programs. Well, of course, they're also moneymakers. And the idea is, too, that it would then segue the person into the Australian, in this case, this is what's been mentioned, Australian university, where non-national tuition would be, non-nationals would pay tuition and universities would make money. But I think the one perception among our group, among all of us practitioners here on this webinar, is that, well, the idea is it's supposed to somehow substitute for, let's say, A-levels, because the British were really adept at coming up with these, because a lot of folks that did not go through British educational system did not have A-levels or its equivalent, and so they decided a foundation year might be necessary. And so my answer to that is no. We know what A-levels are, and foundation year, it may supposedly walk like a duck, act like a duck, and talk like a duck. It's not really a duck. It's not really an A-level. So my suggestion and don't forget, our British colleagues do not grant any kind of credit for those A levels that got them into the British degree in the first place. We Americans do because that system transcends ours by a year. 2 years of sixth form college after GCSEs is 13 years total, and that's the only way to properly access a British degree. So that's why we grant credit for those A levels that British students have. But as far as foundation year is concerned, no, it's not the same thing to me as an A level. It is simply, it would be like having graduated high school in the United States, you go to a prep school because you're trying to get into one of the service academies and your GPA is not good enough, or you didn't get this letter or that letter from your congressman, and you're trying to make your record look better so that you can get into the program. That's what it really is. And so I would strongly urge you not to consider credit for these foundation year programs.
We got a late breaking question for someone who normally treats the 3+2 in India as comparable to a U.S. bachelor's degree, but are seeing some 3+2 or non-specified duration of masters, I guess, from different countries. What is ACRO's policy on these degrees? In short, it depends a lot on where you're from, but we see most of these situations in Europe, specifically with Bologna signatory countries. And I would say overall, EDGE is disposed to recognize a 3+2 masters from many European countries as comparable to a U.S. master's, with kind of a bachelor's degree ghosted in there somewhere, unstated, but it's in there. So what does anybody else have to say about that?
Hey, let me jump in because I want to give a little history as well. First of all, what you said is absolutely right, and I think one of the critical reasons for considering these European Bologna compliant bachelor master 3+2s as a U.S. master's degree, whatever you think about that first 3-year degree. The reason is the ECTS. It's all based on accumulation of credits. You have 300 ECTS, 150 semester hours. And so the natural inclination for the U.S. educator or credential evaluator is to say, well, that's a master's degree. Now, there are other non-signatory countries that are starting to embrace that because their historical educational system is based on a European model. Specifically, we're talking about Francophone countries in Africa that have adopted the LMD, like the French universities, have adopted, even Grande École, have adopted ECTS and are using those for their degrees right this minute. And I mentioned this the other day in the AICE Credential Forum. I'm working with Emily Tsay, who unfortunately couldn't join us on this call today, and looking at the Diplôme d'ingénieur. It began as an exercise with regard to a specific country, Tunisia, I believe it was, and immediately we realized that it needed to go beyond just one country because there were several involved in this process. And so I'm working on that project now. I hope to have it finished. Emily's done amazing work, and so I don't want to lean on her anymore, but I'm going to try to get it together. In fact, I think I sent it out today. The group is going to look at it and consider that. So that's Francophone Africa. So we're going to try to see if we can't bring that into alignment with what we do in France. Now, and I realize we're out of time, but I'll just quickly say India. India, of course, is a similar 3+2 situation. Well, until the NEP causes them to go to 4-year degrees. But for the moment, India is a 3+2 bachelor master situation within certain disciplines. And we, of course, don't consider the 3-year bachelors to be comparable to US bachelors. And then on the question of the master's 2 years later, what do we call it? In Europe, we call it a master's, but in India, we're not. And I realize that that's problematic for some who love consistency. It sort of bothers me, but I think it's something that we have to address in terms of the question of quality. There are over 900 universities in India with 30,000 or more affiliated colleges and institutes. And I just feel that there's a quality assurance problem that doesn't exist in the Bologna process because the Bologna process is predicated on 4 things, one of which is quality assurance mechanisms that the Indian educational system simply lacks at the present time. So, and finally, we feel that a change on the Indian 3+2 would be a volcanic occurrence within EDGE. And we just feel we can't do that, especially now that we know that the Indian system is changing and this suddenly starts to become something of a moot point. Drew, I need to give it back to you because I see we're at 2:01 or we're sort of thereafter.
Well, you know, Dave, I'm going to let you wrap it all up right here with anything else that we need to say. But I just thank you all for being here. Same bat time, same bat channel, 3rd Thursday of the month. And I'm done.
I just wanted to direct everyone to the chat where Shelby Curley has answered very nicely the question about the Porta Firmas electronic signature affirmation system, which is not a document verification system. It's really about the ability that the signer has to do electronic signatures. And reiterating what you said, Drew, thank you very much, everyone, for coming out. I mean, I know it's not below zero everywhere, but it feels like it is to me. And it was great to spend another hour with you on the EDGE user group. We'll see you the 3rd Thursday of next month, and that'll wrap it up.